tell you about two techniques I use in simulations that help increase the realism for the students. The first technique is attaching a chest drainage system to the simulator and then attaching it to a vacuum system. By doing this, it helps the students understand how the chest drainage system actually functions. The other technique I use is to attach a wound drainage system such as a Jackson Pratt or a hemovac to the mannequin in a fashion that will be incorporated into the scenario to increase this realism of the student's experience, and it also helps the student better understand how to manage these systems in real life. Scenario, I give the case that the patient has had a motor vehicle accident and needed a chest drainage system inserted in the emergency room. So prior to the students coming to the simulation experience, I fill the drainage systems with a little bit of water with some coloring in it to simulate the chambers. The first one, with the suction control chamber, I only put a little bit of water in it below the -20 centimeter level, and in the case scenario I tell them it's supposed to be at a -20, and during the student experience they're supposed to assess the chest drainage system and notice that the water level is below what was ordered. I also will incorporate an air leak, so the students are supposed to be able to identify an air leak. Then in your particular scenario you can tell them what type of drainage is coming out and what level the off-going nurse has marked it at. And then you can change that level in your scenario so the students can determine if the amount of drainage is above normal or not. You can either do the drainage with some colored water, or if you want, you can take a little piece of red tape like I've done here and put the drainage to a particular level that you want the students to identify. For the wound drainage system, what you can do is take a little cup and squirt in some hand sanitizer or some other base liquid, and then you can squirt in a little bit of food coloring and then mix it together, and then take your syringe and squirt it into the particular bulb to simulate drainage from the wound. Now I'll tell you how I set up each one of these with the patient simulator. Once I have the chest drainage system set up with the amount of fluid that I want, I take the chest tube and take a vinyl glove or latex glove and put it over the end of the chest drainage system, and then take a piece of tape and close that end. This piece of the chest tube will be placed along the mannequin's chest and covered with a 4x4 and then taped to simulate where the chest drainage system is inserted into the chest. For the Jackson Pratt drain to function, or to simulate how this drainage system works, I take a basic paper clip and fold the ends of the tube. Then I'm able to squeeze the drainage bulb, and then that will hold the suction. But in the particular scenario, when the simulation starts, I have the suction off of it so that whenever the students performs their assessment of the patient, they should notice that the suction isn't being applied to the wound, and they are supposed to apply suction by squeezing the bulb, putting the cap on, and with the paper clip holding the end of the tube, it will keep the bulb from reinflating. So the students will then realize that that's the way it's supposed to be. So far, I've taken the latex glove and put it over the patient end of the chest tube. And then I've taken 2x2 or 4x4s and tape and applied it to the mannequin. Then I've taken the chest drainage system and attached it to the chest tube with a piece of tape, and I only put it on there very lightly to ensure that I have an air leak. And then I took the chest drainage system and attached it to the wall suction. I turned the suction on to a point where the bubbling in the suction control is very high. But expect the students to, as you taught them in class or in the reading, to go down and identify that this is where the air leak occurs because the water stops bubbling in the water-sealed chamber. So to remedy that, you would want the student to take more tape and tape the connection and then release the clamp, and that would resolve the air bubbling in the leak in the water-sealed chamber. The other thing you would expect the students to identify is that there's too much bubbling in this wet Chlorovac. So you would want them to turn the level of suction down to just a gentle bubbling so that it isn't quite as vigorous as it was when they first came into the room. The other thing I wanted to show you is how I incorporated the Jackson-Pratt drainage bulb. You'd want the students to do their assessment and identify that there's an error in this Jackson-Pratt drain, because whenever you started the scenario, you would tell them that the wound should have a Jackson-Pratt drain to bulb suction. Whenever they do their assessment, they should identify that the bulb suction has not been set. So what you would expect them to do is squeeze the bulb, apply the cap to the Jackson-Pratt drain, and now you'll see that there is suction applied to the Jackson-Pratt drain. The student should also assess the quantity and color of the drainage in the bulb, in addition to the dressing that's covering the wound. Now, you could either put some dark red or brown over the dressing to identify some sort of a drainage if you choose. But these are a couple techniques that you can use in your scenarios to increase the reality that the student will experience, and it'll give you a chance to assess their learning in a better way.